Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India will become a global power in semiconductors, lays foundation of 3 mega semiconductor projects. Joe Biden and Donald Trump clinched their parties' nominations, set for a rematch in November US presidential elections. Russia sends nuclear warning alongside offer for talks on Ukraine. United States says Putin not ready for serious talks. Arsenal and Barcelona reach Champions League quarterfinals, overcoming Porto and Napoli in their last 16 tie. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in a program, India's Decade, Chips for Viksit Bharat, via video conferencing. Prime Minister laid the foundation stone of 3 semiconductor projects worth about Rs 1.2 lakh crore, with the goal of development of semiconductors and display manufacturing ecosystems in India. India's semiconductor mission has been set up to create an end-to-end semiconductor ecosystem to enable India to lead the global semiconductor industry. Prime Minister said that today India is the second largest mobile manufacturer. Talking about National Quantum Mission, Prime Minister said there is going to be rapid expansion of India's AI mission. Prime Minister said 3 projects will help in making India a global hub of semiconductor production.
21वीं सदी टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन सेंचुरी है और इलेक्ट्रॉनिक चिप के बिना उसकी कल्पना भी नहीं की जा सकती। मेड इन इंडिया चिप, डिजाइन इन इंडिया चिप भारत को आत्मनिर्भरता की तरफ ले जाने में, आधुनिकता की तरफ ले जाने में ये बहुत बड़ा सामर्थ्य पैदा करेगी। पहली, दूसरी और तीसरी औद्योगिक क्रांति के समय भारत अनेक कारणों से पीछे रह गया था, लेकिन अब भारत इंडस्ट्री 4.0 चौथी औद्योगिक क्रांति के नेतृत्व के इरादे से आत्मविश्वास के साथ आगे बढ़ रहा है।
Prime Minister Modi further said the day is not far when India will become a global power in semiconductors as well.
चिप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सिर्फ एक इंडस्ट्री मात्र नहीं है, ये विकास का वो द्वार खोलती है जो असीम संभावनाओं से भरा हुआ है। इस सेक्टर से न सिर्फ भारत में रोजगार के नए अवसर बनने वाले हैं, बल्कि टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसमेंट्स के क्षेत्र में भी बड़ी प्रगति होने वाली है।
And DD India correspondent Jessica Taneja joins us live from New Delhi. Jessica, take us through how the 3 hubs launched today by Prime Minister will sort of spearhead India's semiconductor revolution.
This is in line with India's ambition to have Make in India chips in the near future. It's part of India's national development goal of becoming a developed nation by 2047. If you look at the recent investments made in the sector, particularly the project that has been announced, it is worth 1.25 lakh crore rupees. It is going to be a project which would have 3 facilities, namely in Dholera in Gujarat, and of course it will be outsourced to the semiconductor assembly and test facilities And of course, there is going to be one in Assam as well. There will be two in Gujarat and one in Assam. And the project cost, of course, is huge. Looking at how India is mapping this entire global supply chain and how it could play a critical role in filling that gap when it comes to those crucial chips that are used in almost everything that is used to power on. And India at this point has positioned itself as a crucial hub and a potential that could add immense value to the global supply chain. Now, with this investment, you look at the recent past as well, where the Prime Minister last year had inaugurated another plant for Micron Technologies in the US to set up its testing and assembly facility in Gujarat. Now that will be operational, we're told, next year in 2025, early 2025. So we could have that ambition and we could see the fruition of that ambition of building Make in India chips by 2025. Of course, we also know the deal with Foxconn, where now 25%, the aim is to make 25% iPhones in the country. We're just talking about the phone sector, but there are various sectors where semiconductor chips are required. And if you look at the kind of investment the Indian government has made when it comes to its semiconductor industry, with its semiconductor mission, the fund that was allocated to it was around 25 billion. And with the recent enhancement, there are projects which are receiving fiscal support from the government to the tune of 50%. And that was the case with Micron Technologies, where we saw the plant that was set up and is now under progress in Gujarat. So this is just the beginning, Shubhendu. A lot more is going to happen to further enhance this industry.
And what does India's ambition to become a semiconductor hub imply for its domestic markets, as you mentioned, and also the global supply chain?
Well, currently the domestic need for of chips at this point stands at $25 billion, that was estimated. And all of it is imported at this point. And India wants to overcome this hurdle and be manufacturing it as well as catering to the domestic market and being a pivotal hub for the global supply chain as well. And that is why you see a flurry of investments being made in India, be it Micron and other big companies also now looking at India as a potential hub. So, of course, a lot of interest generated here, but the one particular plant being inaugurated today, or the facility inaugurated today, is associated with the Tata Group, entrusted with building the facility, which would further enhance. Let's also not forget the kind of initiatives that India has undertaken to position itself as a crucial player in the global supply chain. For example, if you remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit last year to the United States, where crucial pacts and deals were signed. And one of those pacts was to bring in more investment and the assembly chains and testing that could be done with facilities in India. Of course, also look at applied materials, one of the second biggest market that is being considered in India. Now, Applied Materials is setting up a $400 million worth research facility in Bengaluru, where there could be focus on a lot of engineering and how to incorporate AI, where there's lack of labor, skilled labor that could be helping in building those crucial chip technologies. So, of course, no place in the world can do an end-to-end chip manufacturing, and that is a known fact. And in that realm and in that crucial lacuna, India finds a very important space to be that powerhouse that could supply, it could help in assembly as well as manufacturing those silicon wafers that have become extremely critical, while some would say even more important than oil at this point. Shubhendu.
Jessica, thank you for those updates. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has approved a proposal for expansion of the National Cadet Corps, or NCC, with the addition of 3 lakh cadet vacancies. The expansion is expected to meet the growing demand for NCC in educational institutions across the country. From just 20,000 cadets in 1948, NCC will now have a sanctioned strength of 20 lakh cadets in its rolls, making it the largest uniformed youth organization of the world. With NCC being offered as an elective subject as per National Education Policy 2020, the expansion will be a step towards meeting the aspirations of the youth. Expansion will lead to proportionate distribution of vacancies across all states and union territories. The proposal also seeks employment of ex-servicemen as NCC instructors, thus leveraging their skills and vast experience. Moving on, an International Monetary Fund IMF mission is arriving in Pakistan for a second and last review of the $3 billion standby arrangement. The 4-day review will begin on Thursday. Islamabad secured the last gasp rescue package last summer to avert a sovereign default. The last review, if successful, will immediately release a tranche of around $1.1 billion for the economically shattered country, while the remaining amount will be phased over the program's duration. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump of the United States both clinched victory in their parties' respective nominations, making it the first U.S. presidential election rematch in about 70 years. Biden surpassed the delegates' numbers on Tuesday night as results began to come in from the primary contest in Georgia. Biden faced only token opposition in the Democratic primary campaign. He issued a statement after sealing the Democratic nomination, taking aim at what he called Trump's campaign of resentment, revenge and retribution that threatens the very idea of America. Hours later, Donald Trump also secured the Republican presidential nomination as 4 states held contest, including Georgia, the battleground where Trump faces criminal charges for his efforts to overturn the state's 2020 results. The outcome of Tuesday's voting was essentially predetermined after Trump's last remaining rival for the Republican nomination, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, ended her presidential campaign following Trump's dominant performance last week on Super Tuesday, when he won 14 of the 15 state contests.
It's been a tremendous week for our movement. We won big on Super Tuesday. They call it Super Tuesday for a reason. We won big. And now we're just days away from officially clinching the Republican nomination for President of the United States of America.
Lawmakers in the United States grilled the former special prosecutor who investigated President Joe Biden's handling of classified documents in Congress on Tuesday. Robert Hur was challenged by both political parties over his report's conclusion that Biden did keep some documents, but a jury would unlikely find him guilty of doing so willfully. Caroline Malone gets us more from Washington, D.C.
Robert Hur stood by his report when he gave testimony to the House committee on Tuesday. He'd been assigned by the Justice Department to look into Biden's handling of classified documents while he was vice president. He interviewed the current president back in October, just after the Hamas attack on Israel. He said he found that Biden did have classified documents after his time in office, but that it would be unlikely he could be found guilty of it, given a lack of evidence, and also that a jury may see him as well-intentioned and just forgetting about the documents. Democrats on Tuesday took issue with a suggestion of Biden having a problem with his memory, saying that was beyond the scope of the investigation and that Hur must have known it would become political. The Republicans, on the other hand, are campaigning on Biden being too old, and they do talk of issues that they see with his mental capacity. And in the House hearing, Republicans say they thought Hur didn't go far enough, that they see there being a 2-tiered justice system, one that lets Biden off, but charges the former president Donald Trump, who's also facing this time a criminal case for keeping multiple classified documents, some of them top secret, and not returning them immediately to the FBI. Hur said he did see a difference between the two cases, but that he stands by all that was in his report. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
Time for a short break. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Nepal Prime Minister Prachanda seeks vote of confidence in the parliament. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says will forward the military campaign into Rafah. And after Prime Minister Ariel Henry of Haiti pledged to step down, unease in the capital.
QR कोड स्कैन करो, 5000 का कैशबैक पाओ। वाह, दिल बन गया। यूपीआई पिन एंटरिंग सिर्फ पैसे भेजने के लिए है।
आरबीआई कहता है
जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Nepal Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal Prachanda is seeking a vote of confidence from Parliament on Wednesday. So far, Prime Minister Prachanda is proceeding with the confidence vote. It comes days after Nepal's PM forged a new alliance with the unified Marxist-Leninist, the Communist Party of Nepal. Prachanda, a leader of the Maoist Centre Communist Party of Nepal, on Sunday sent a letter to the Parliament Secretariat indicating he has severed ties with the Nepali Congress. Russian President Vladimir Putin, speaking to Russia's RIA state news agency and state television, said it is not the right time to talk about the reshuffle of Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin's government.
We need to talk about it after the elections, after the votes are counted. It seems to me that it is not right time now to talk about it. But in general, the government is working and we can see it. The results are obvious. It's an objective data and is working quite satisfactorily.
Meanwhile, the Russian Central Election Commission has decided to extend the voting period to 3 days from 15th to 17th of March, making it the first 3-day presidential elections in Russia. For the first time since 2008, 4 candidates are vying for the position of the president. Putin said discussions about the government reshuffle can be done after the election results and that he deemed the current government to be satisfactory. Russian President Putin on Wednesday said that Moscow remains in a state of combat readiness and is fully ready to use nuclear weapons if its sovereignty was threatened. He said the United States understands that if it deploys American troops on Russian territory or to Ukraine, Russia would treat the move as an intervention. However, Putin said Russia had never faced the need to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, where the conflict has raged since February of 2022. The United States will send a new military aid package for Ukraine worth $300 million. President Biden's administration says that this is the first such move in months as additional funds for Kiev remain blocked by Republican leaders in the Congress.
On behalf of President Biden, I'm announcing an emergency package of security assistance of $300 million worth of weapons and equipment to address some of Ukraine's pressing needs. This emergency package that we're announcing contains a large tranche of artillery rounds and gimlers for the HIMARS. This ammunition will keep Ukraine's guns firing for a period, but only a short period. This package does not displace and should not delay the critical need to pass the bipartisan national security bill.
Ukraine's President Zelensky said he was looking forward to the arrival of the new defense package from the United States.
United States and all Americans who valued freedom for their defense support for Ukraine. I'm looking forward to the arrival of a new defense package.
Palestinian assailants were killed after stabbing 2 Israeli security officers at a checkpoint on outskirts of Jerusalem. Israeli police says that the man arrived at the checkpoint in a bicycle and drew a knife and attacked the security officers. The incident comes amid rising violence that has surged since Hamas attack triggered Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza. A ship carrying 200 tons of aid for Gaza left Cyprus on Tuesday in a pilot project to open a sea corridor to deliver supplies. The charity ship Open Arms was seen sailing out of Larnaca port towing a barge containing flour, rice and protein. The voyage to Gaza takes about 15 hours, but a heavy tow barge could considerably lengthen the trip, possibly up to a couple of days. Cyprus, the European Union state closest to the Israel-Hamas conflict, is just over 200 miles northwest of Gaza. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated on Tuesday that Israel would press forward with its military campaign in Rafah, in southern Gaza Strip.
We will destroy Hamas, free our hostages, and ensure that Gaza doesn't ever pose a threat to Israel again. We will finish the job in Rafah while enabling the civilian population to get out of harm's way.
Netanyahu's comments come as European Union leaders plan to urge Israel not to launch a ground operation in Rafah, according to draft conclusions of the upcoming summit scheduled for March 21st and 22nd. Moving on, United States expects members of the Haiti's Presidential Transition Council to be appointed in the next 24 to 48 hours. U.S. statement has come on Tuesday as Haiti's Prime Minister had rendered his resignation. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller says Washington expects an agreement would be reached in the very near future.
We welcome yesterday's announcement of a transitional governance structure in Haiti, which paves the way for a peaceful transition of power, continuity of governance, an action plan for near-term security, including the deployment of a multinational security support mission, and a pathway to free and fair elections.
And the resignation of Haiti's Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, has opened new paths for the Caribbean island, which has been plunged into a spiral of violence and instability over the past few weeks. State India's Latin American correspondent, Mary Trini Mena, explains Haiti is getting ready for the formation of a transitional council.
The acting president and Prime Minister of Haiti has agreed to step down in his duties and make way for new authorities. The decision comes after several Caribbean leaders gathered in Jamaica in order to find a peaceful resolution to the country's political and social crisis. The new Transitional Council has two main obligations: to appoint an interim Prime Minister and a new electoral council. It's been reported that it will be formed by 7 voting members, including representatives from Haiti's major political parties and members of the society, along with 2 observers. The Prime Minister, who is stranded in Puerto Rico, has been prevented from returning to this country. His office says the airport is encircled. Gang groups, who control about 80% of the capital Port-au-Prince, had demanded the resignation of Henry, saying they want a new leadership. For 2 weeks, heavily armed civilians have caused chaos across the capital, attacking police stations, the presidential palace, and freeing thousands of inmates. Ariel Henry was appointed in 2021 after the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse, but Haiti has not held elections since 2016, deepening its political instability. The goal is to call for presidential elections in 2024 and help to ease the unrest in the poorest country of the Western Hemisphere. The United Nations warned Tuesday that Haiti is on the brink of a devastating hunger crisis. Maritrini Mena in Caracas, reporting for DD India.
The head of the UN's nuclear watchdog, Rafael Grossi, has said he supports Japan's push to hold summit talks with North Korea, even if discussion about Pyongyang's nuclear buildup is initially off the table on Tuesday. Grossi added it is very important to engage, and there was no direct safety issue from the Ukrainian staff being barred from accessing Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Grossi visited Japan to inspect the Fukushima nuclear plant, where IAEA is helping oversee the release of treated wastewater into ocean. Grossi last inspected the plant in July last year.
It is very important to engage. The conditions of that dialogue, I would not pretend to tell Prime Minister Kishida what to do and on the basis of which premises. I would never do that. But what I can say is that engagement is indispensable.
Japan's Space One's Skyros rocket exploded shortly after its inaugural launch on Wednesday. 18-meter four-stage solid-fuel rocket exploded seconds after lifting off from its launch pad on the tip of mountainous Kei Peninsula in western Japan. The explosion left behind a large smoke in a fire near launch pad of the tip of the peninsula in western Japan. Space One did not specify what triggered the self-destruction. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Rescue teams search waters in central Indonesia on Wednesday for 24 fishermen out of 37 missing since their boat sank on the weekend. 2 crew members were found dead. 11 survivors in life jackets were spotted by fishermen on Tuesday. In Singapore, energy workers are getting more hands-on training with a power plant simulator. All 6 power generation companies of the country collaborated to create a simulator over a period of 5 years. According to a report by International Energy Agency, methane emissions from fossil fuel industry remains near a record high in 2023. Production and use of fossil fuels put more than 120 million metric tons of methane into the atmosphere last year. An Italian high-tech firm, Iron Lev, has conducted its first test of magnetic levitation transport on an existing rail track. The technology has the potential to reduce costs and energy use. And still to come on DD India News Hour. On day 3 of a visit to Mauritius, India's President Draupadi Murmu visits Apravasi Ghat. Blast at a restaurant rocks Hebei province in China.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India. Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Our top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India will become global power in semiconductors, lays foundation of 3 mega semiconductor projects. Joe Biden and Donald Trump clinched their respective parties' nomination, set for a rematch in November US presidential elections. Arsenal and Barcelona reached Champions League quarterfinals, overcoming Porto and Napoli in their last 16 tie. On to our top story. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in India's Decade Chips for Viksit Bharat via video conferencing. Prime Minister Modi laid the foundation stone of 3 semiconductor projects worth about 1.25 lakh crore rupees, with the goal of development of semiconductors and display manufacturing ecosystems in India. And to talk about it, joining me is M. Srinivas Rao, CEO of T-Hub Foundation. It is India's leading incubator in semiconductor programs. Good afternoon and welcome, sir. Now, take us through the manner in which the projects that have been launched today, how does it pave the way for India's foray into how semiconductors are going to define India's decade and its global impact?
Thank you. So thank you for having me here. First of all, this is an extremely important phase for us. India has to be a significant player in the semiconductor space because, as we know, semiconductors are used to power everything from drones, self-driving cars, cell phones, etc. Right? And so far we've been import dependent. So we are already aware that we had the announcement of a plant from Micron in Gujarat, and now two more plants in Gujarat and one more coming up in Assam. First of all, from a job creation perspective, we are expecting that about close to 300,000 plus jobs will get created. One. Second is it will create the development of fabrication facilities. It will help homegrown packaging technology advancements, etc. And apart from creating direct jobs, there will also be a lot of significant indirect job creation, right? So with all of this, India is now going to be a full stack player, starting with foundries to ATMP, which is assembly, test, measurement and marking and packaging. Also in terms of OSAT, outsourced assembly and testing. So we now have essentially the phase one of a full semiconductor ecosystem building. And in terms of apart from job creation, it will also, I think you'll now start to see a ripple effect being created, and more companies will start looking at India much more seriously from a large-scale electronics manufacturing perspective.
Right, Mr. Rao, as India aspires to become a global hub of semiconductors manufacturing, in terms of the context of global supply chain, where is India positioning itself?
So today we have the potential to become a leader in in the assembly, testing, and packaging. Similarly, in terms of being able to attract fabs which have been producing legacy semiconductors, typically 28 nanometers and above. And as you know, we have already had a long capability, historically strong capability in semiconductor design. We have close to 125,000 plus workers who have been part of the IC design workforce. So I think this is where we are today. The only way forward is upwards. I think we will see more and more, because now the early movers have come in, have made significant investments. The PLI program, where the government is offering substantial fiscal incentives for companies to set up. So from all of those standpoints, I think the way ahead is, the future is very bright.
You mentioned that it augurs well for job creation in the country, the semiconductor boom, but in economic terms, we are importing billions of dollars worth semiconductors for the vast domestic market as well. In that context, how are things set to change in the coming future?
Sure. So if you look at our market today, it's about, in terms of dollar terms, it's about $34 billion, and it's projected to reach in the next 8 years. It's expected to get to about $100 billion. So almost a 20% year-on-year growth. So I think from that standpoint, the the four which we talked about, which is Micron plus plus the CG plus the two entities from Tata's, I think are going to make a significant impact. And I think over a period of time, in terms of reducing our import bill, of course, all of these plants will take about between 3 to 4 years to start commercial production. So we'll have to wait and see, but I think they will definitely make a significant difference.
And given that there are already established players globally, including China, in the supply chain of semiconductors, what are the real challenges and opportunities for India?
No, so I think obviously, I think what the last 4 years have taught us, thanks to first the pandemic and then geopolitical issues, 2 wars or 3 wars you might call it going on right now, is I think companies world over recognize that you need to diversify, you need to have multiple sources of supply, and you need to be working in a more stable environment, right? So I think the time is opportune. I think whatever work has been done in terms of getting a lot of focus on large-scale electronics manufacturing, it is starting to play. It is what we call the green shoots are in place, and I think like we have shown in other sectors today, for example, in the automotive sector, etc., we can become a globally competitive player in the semiconductor space.
And Mr. Rao, in doing so, how do you also see India's choice of partners in its semiconductor adventure? Japan, Taiwan, Thailand, each of them bringing their unique strengths into the domain.
Yeah, so I think obviously for geopolitical reasons, it makes a lot of sense for all these entities to partner with an open society like ours, okay, where there is clarity of rules, the rule of law applies, and I think and the fact we have talent in abundance, we have progressive, forward-looking government policies, infrastructure is being scaled up, and the domestic demand is going up. As I said, domestic demand will go up from 34 billion to almost 100 billion, right? So there is all the factors which are required for companies to look at India seriously: growing domestic demand, talent availability, improving infrastructure, right, and forward-looking government policies. So we are almost creating a very good environment for companies to actively look at coming into India.
Right. And Mr. Rao, I want to go back to a point that you mentioned earlier about the importance of semiconductors being used in possibly every electronic product around us. But for those of us who don't understand the use of semiconductors, if you could simplify its importance and also the future of AI that we talk about so often, what role does semiconductors have to play in that?
Semiconductor has a role in everything which you do. For example, even for someone who's not even remotely associated with technology, the phone which you use has lots of semiconductors in it. The LED bulb which you use at home has a lot of semiconductors in it. The EV which you are going to be driving, or even the car which you are going to be driving, or the two-wheeler which you are going to be driving, has significant semiconductor components into it, right? Or the calculator which you are using also has significant, semiconductor components into it, right? And I can go on.
Right.
It has so many use cases. So this is an industry of strategic importance for us. It is important from the point of view of safety. It is important from the point of view of electrification. It's important from the point of view of telecom, etc., right? Apart from whatever else I told you about. So from that standpoint, for us to become self-reliant and move towards self-reliance is absolutely critical.
On that note, thank you very much, Mr. Srinivas Rao, for joining us on the News Hour, sharing your perspective. Moving on the third day of a visit to Mauritius, India's President Draupadi Murmu visited Apravasi Ghat and Intercontinental Slavery Museum. India's President paid her tributes. Built in 1849, Apravasi Ghat used to be the immigration depot for contracted workers. It's also included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. The museum commemorates the contributions of hundreds and thousands of Africans and Asian slaves to Mauritian colonial economy and society. Delegation-level talks were also held between India and Mauritius in the National Assembly of Mauritius. The two countries decided to further strengthen their bilateral ties in various sectors, including financial services, civil services, taxation, and investigating agencies by signing 4 MOUs. India's President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister of Mauritius Pravind Kumar Jugnauth jointly virtually inaugurated 14 small development India-assisted projects. The leaders also unveiled foundation stone for the new forensic science lab funded by India. Prime Minister of Bhutan, Tshering Tobgay, will be on an official visit to India from 14th to 18th of March 2024 at an invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This will be his first overseas visit after assuming office in January this year. During the visit, Prime Minister of Bhutan will call on India's President Draupadi Murmu, will also hold bilateral talks with Prime Minister of India. India's External Affairs Minister and other Indian dignitaries will call on the visiting Prime Minister. He will also visit Mumbai. The visit of Bhutanese PM will provide an opportunity for the two sides to review India-Bhutan partnership progress. The fifth SEBI-NISM Research Conference on Sustained Capital Formation, The Way Forward, was held in Indian state of Maharashtra. The researchers, policymakers, regulators, students and other stakeholders participated in the conference. The goal of this conference is to continuously improve research standards in securities markets, facilitate industry-academia interaction and exchange of information and knowledge. Addressing the conference, Chief Economic Advisor to Government of India, V. Anantha Nageshwaran said, "Economy is a system of mutual dependencies."
The fiscal authorities, given their ability to tax, or the monetary authorities, given their ability to print money, or external demand, are the factors that do not necessarily fall within this closed loop system. And these are considered exogenous factors that can once in a while be applied to lift economies out of downturns. Otherwise, capital formation and economic growth are naturally co-dependent. And in this regard, we are all very happy to note that our economy is poised to grow at more than 7% for 3 consecutive years. And with some very good luck and reasonable assumptions, we might do so in FY25 as well.
A recent analysis by Dubai Chamber revealed that Indian investors topped the list of nationalities of new non-UAE businesses joining the chamber last year. A total of 15,481 new Indian-owned companies became members last year, representing year-over-year growth of about 38%. It highlights Dubai's continuing attractiveness among Indian businesses and investors. The analysis also emphasized the strong ties between the two countries, India and the UAE. This comes amid the implementation of India-UAE Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA, to further boost trade and investment between the two nations. The agreement streamlines procedures, reduces tariffs and creates a more favorable environment for businesses on both sides. Let's take a look at other stories making news today. And beginning with India's President Draupadi Murmu gave her assent to the Uniform Civil Code of Uttarakhand 2024 bill on Wednesday, which proposes common rules on marriage, divorce, inheritance of property and relationships for all citizens irrespective of their religion. India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar met Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of New Zealand, Winston Peters. Discussions between the leaders focused on enhancing economic cooperation, connectivity, people-to-people ties between the two nations. This is the first visit of Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters to India after formation of the new government in New Zealand. A day after Nayab Singh Saini took oath as Haryana Chief Minister, his government today tabled a confidence motion in the Assembly this morning to prove its majority in the House. With numbers in favour of Nayab Singh Saini's government, wins the trust votes and forms the government. Following the order of India's Supreme Court, the State Bank of India handed over all the records related to electoral bonds to the country's Election Commission. The records include date of purchase, value and name of the buyer of each bond along with date of encashment. SBI said 22,217 bonds were purchased from April 2019 to February 2024, while 22,030 bonds were redeemed. Social media platform X is witnessing a trend that has gone viral. The hashtag What's Wrong with India has more than 400,000 posts, with even the Government of India's portal handle MyGovIndia taking part in it. Initially, the hashtag saw people of Western countries run a campaign pointing out questions on India and overall social and civic issues. However, soon Indian citizens started responding with posts and examples of growth and development. India signs protocol for establishment of its first bilateral institutional mechanism with Dominican Republic on trade and commerce. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Dominican Republic, Roberto Alvarez, and Ambassador of India to the Dominican Republic signed the protocol for establishment of Joint Economic and Trade Committee on Tuesday. The agreement is an important step to strengthen the bilateral cooperation on trade, services, industrial tech and various other sectors. India primarily imports gold from Dominican Republic and exports pharmaceuticals, marine products, motor vehicles, 2- and 3-wheelers among them. The European Union has chosen to regulate artificial intelligence models on the basis of their potential risk. The AI regulation in EU is a step closer to enactment of European lawmakers set to vote on it on today. 27 heads of EU states approved the law in February, and it's now expected to be passed by the Parliament as well. Ishan Garg gets us more from Brussels.
The AI Act will be implemented in stages. 20 days after the rules are published, the law will come into force. Companies will then have 3 years to make their AI systems compliant. And that path is a steep one. Under the EU's AI Act, the first one of its kind globally, the bloc is regulating AI by dividing its potential users into 4 categories, depending on the kind of risk they can pose to society. For example, AI technology being used in driving systems or one affecting the movement of migrants through border checks will be most strictly scrutinized, while systems categorized as minimal risk, such as AI-powered video games, will have little oversight. Officials say most AI systems will fall under this category. Now, there are some uses of AI, though, that have been outlawed completely. Categorization of people based on social indicators or broad use of facial recognition technology are among them. Companies have said they will need time and money to comply with these norms, and some, including the makers of ChatGPT, have said the rules could potentially hurt the growth of the entire industry. Now, it's a reservation that some members of the 27-nation bloc also expressed during the negotiations. France and Germany argued that the rules could hurt their nascent AI sector. But now that the law is close to becoming a reality, the focus is also on how member countries are working on implementing it. The European Commission has already set up an AI office. However, member nations are still working out the best way to regulate. Reports say they will have 12 months to decide which department will oversee the implementation, meaning the execution of the law could be an uphill battle, not only for the tech companies, but also for the regulators. Ishan Garg in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
Time for a short break, still to come on DD India News Hour. Spanish tennis player Carlos Alcaraz cruises into Indian Wells quarterfinals. India shuttler PV Sindhu advanced to the pre-quarter stage of the All England Open Championship. And Saudi soccer club Al Hilal breaks world record for most consecutive wins.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political, and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Time now for all the action from the world of sports with my colleague Deepika, who's here with me. Deepika, should we talk about UEFA first?
Indeed, Shubhendu. Thanks and good afternoon, first of all. And let's quickly take our viewers through all the sporting action that we are witnessing in the world of tennis as well as football. Well, Barcelona and Arsenal were able to make it to the quarterfinal round of the UEFA Champions League after their hard-fought victories over Napoli and FC Porto in the round of 16. Barcelona went past the Serie A champions after beating them by 3-1, while Arsenal had to go past Porto on penalties.
Arsenal have reached the Champions League quarterfinals for the first time in 14 years after a nail-biting finish in which they edged Portuguese club Porto in a penalty shootout after a tense last 16 duel had ended in a 1-1 on aggregate. Porto, who won the opening leg 1-0, proved stubborn opposition for the Premier League leaders. However, extra time failed to separate the sides, but Mikel Arteta's team held their nerve to snap a run of 7 successive exits in the last 16 stage. The last time they reached the quarterfinals in 2010 was also after beating Porto in the last 16, and they'll go into Friday's draw full of confidence that they can go further.
A magic night. What we expected, a really tough opponent, really well organized, very difficult to generate constant momentum in the game and the way they play, and that's credit to them. We did it. We scored a beautiful goal. Well, it's another big step, especially as a club. In the last 7 years, we haven't been in this competition. The last 14, we haven't been where we are today. So that tells you the difficulty of it. And the best thing is we're not satisfied. We want more, and we're going to try to go through the next round for sure.
In the other last 16 tie, Spanish club Barcelona reached the Champions League quarterfinals for the first time in 4 years with a thrilling 3-1 home win over Italian club Napoli in their second leg match that gave them a 4-2 aggregate victory. Early goals by Fermin Lopez and Joao Cancelo set the host on their way, and after Amir Rahmani cut the deficit before the break, Robert Lewandowski wrapped up the win with a late third. Napoli had never beaten Barcelona in their previous 5 meetings, and it turned out to be a repeat of the 2020 Champions League meetings, with a 3-1 home win for the Spanish side after a 1-1 draw in Naples.
The ideal scenario. I think we played one of the best games of the season. The team is in its best moment. I am very happy, very proud of the team. The players, the youngsters, the veterans, they have all taken a very big step forward, and we are among the 8 best teams in the Champions League. And so soon after where we have come from.
This is the first time Barcelona managed a victory in the UCL knockout since 2020 and their first round of 16 appearances after Lionel Messi's departure. The five-time champions topped Group H of this season ahead of Porto, Shakhtar Donetsk and Royal Antwerp. Sports Desk, DD India.
On to cricket now. In an interesting turn of events at the ongoing Women's Premier League, Australia's superstar Elizabeth Perry creates history, taking the first ever 6-wicket haul in the second edition of WPL. The 33-year-old took 6 for 15, which is the competition's best ever figure and her personal best figure in T20 as well. In the match, Mumbai were on 65 for a loss of 1 wicket before Perry ran riot with the next 6 wickets, running through the order to leave the Indians at 82 for a loss of 7 wickets. Interestingly, Perry bowled 4 batters and snared 2 more LBW with a star-studded list of wickets. Al Hilal on Tuesday broke the world record for most consecutive victories, wrapping up a place in the Asian Champions League semi-finals as 2-0 victory over Al Ittihad, completing a 4-0 aggregate victory. Now, this was the 28th victory in a row for Al Hilal, Saudi Arabia's most decorated team. It surpasses the 27 straight victories by Welsh side, the New Saints, in 2016. While Al Hilal, winners of the title a record 4 times, will take on Al Ain in the next semi-finals next month. On to badminton, 2-time Olympic medalist PV Sindhu advanced to the pre-quarter stage of the All England Open Championship after Yeon Lee retired after the first game. Well, Sindhu was playing her first match when her opponent Won Lee from Germany retired in the first game itself. She was leading by 21-10 and won the match by walkover. Meanwhile, in men's category, HS Pranoy crashed out of the competition in the first round, losing to Su Li Yang of Chinese Taipei. Pranoy lost the 37-minute game by 21-14, 13-21 and 13-21. So that was a quick wrap from the world of sports. Back to you, Shubhendra.
Thank you for joining in, Deepika. And wildlife conservation personnel in southwest China's Yunnan province captured a captivating scene of a herd of wild Asian elephants. The visuals show a group of elephants enjoying a group lunch before a refreshing dip. That's all in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendra Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.